In July of 2002, Fritz Wilson was driving his PT Cruiser on the interstate when suddenly a truck came straight for him.
He actually came across the median and hit my husband head on.
The truck, driven by 16-year-old Travis Turner, blew a tire, killing him and Wilson. Linda and Fritz had only been married 4 years.
My life is devastated because of this, and he had 9 children. And it certainly has changed all their lives, and his grandchildren will never see him.
The tire that blew was actually more than 20 years old. Travis's parents bought it used, but was told the tread was good and so it was safe to use. Now, Linda Wilson and Travis's family are suing the tire manufacturer.
The 2 of them died from this, and it could have been avoided. I really and truly believe that.
There are likely thousands of older tires on the road, a ticking time bomb that some car and tire manufacturers don't want to talk about. Sean Kane with Safety Research and Strategies, a New York nonprofit research group, says it's the industry's dirty little secret. He says the industry knows about the dangers of old tires, but does little to warn consumers. Even though a tire looks new, with age, rubber inside the tire begins to break down.
And tires will vary depending on how they're constructed, but after the 6-year point, there's a clear line that shows that there's a disintegration of those components and the tire will fall apart when it's put into service.
That's why he's asking the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, or NHTSA, to call for a 6-year expiration date on all tires. He says many instances where tires have failed involve spare tires that, after years of sitting, were finally put on the car.
Many of the cases involving old tires were brand new spares that were rotated into service after 6 to 10 years. And those tires failed, and oftentimes fail within the first week of service. Sometimes as quickly as hours they'll fail.
Now there are 10 or 11 digits on the side of your tires that tells you its age. It's called the DOT code. Look at the last 3 or 4 digits after these letters. In this case, this tire was made in the 15th week in the year 2000. Our undercover cameras found older tires being sold at tire shops all over Memphis. Yeah, it's 1998 as well. This guy tried to sell us 2 tires that were 7 years old. He told us it's not the age of the tire, but the tread wear. Can it get too old?
Eventually.
2008, 1998 is not too old?
Not to me, not right now.
Especially if I buy it, huh?
Well, that of course.
Come on in just a minute. $100 bill, your own vehicle, balanced up.
This tire salesman not only told us tread wear was the safety factor, but determining the age of the tire is all but impossible because, he says, there's no manufacturer date. You know what the year is?
The year on?
Yeah, what year is it?
I don't know that they're putting that on yet.
Did they put the year on them yet?
I don't think so. I know they've been discussing doing it. I don't know if they've actually passed the bill yet to the House to make it mandatory.
Toyota and German car manufacturers warn consumers about the dangers of older tires by putting it in their owner's manuals. Toyota recommends any tire which is over 6 years old must be checked by a qualified technician, even if damage is not obvious. It says tires deteriorate with age, even if they've never or seldom been used. On the other hand, the Rubber Manufacturers Association says there's no scientific proof that age makes a tire dangerous. But Linda Wilson believes the age of a tire does matter, and she's determined to prove it. This memorial to her husband in her backyard describes what she hopes no other family will have to experience. Al Deal, Fox 13 News, IT. This isn't the red light district in Amsterdam, but if you drive through the parking lot of the Deluxe Inn on Lamar, you might think it is. Complete with pimps, sex videos, and naked women, all of which can be seen from the front seat of your car. And if that isn't enough for you, there's another show right up the street. At this Crown Inn on Lamar, the world's oldest profession is in full swing, inside 2 rooms known even by out-of-towners as the business suites, rooms 108 and 109. It's no secret that there's prostitution on Lamar. It's been on the Strip for years. Arrests have been made to try and clean up the streets, but are the right people being arrested? That's the complaint we get from neighbors.
It's a lot of vulgar language, you know, they're cussing, carry on, you'll think they're fighting.
R.W. Jordan lives behind the Deluxe Inn and Suites on Lamar. He says police arrest prostitutes around the hotel, and soon they're back on the streets. Jordan says if you really want to clean up the neighborhood, arrest the hotel owner who rents to these women.
He knows what's going on. I think he should be prosecuted along with the others. And then that'll stop that. He will know who he's renting a room to.
Well, I thought there used to be a law against it, renting to prostitute and pimp.
Neighbor Ray Stricker has his own ideas on how to eliminate the illegal activities that go on right behind his house.
I'd fine them every time I catch them. I put a stiff fine on them every time I caught them doing it. And they're making money off of it. See, that's what they're doing. They're making money off of it.
Over a 9-week period, we spent our Friday and Saturday nights videotaping activity at the Deluxe Inn and Suites and the Crown Inn. And look what our undercover cameras caught on tape. At the Deluxe Inn, cars cruise through the hotel lot all night looking for prostitutes. Women stand half naked in their doorways and windows, revealing their assets. This woman left her curtains open even while entertaining her customer. One room played porn videos as potential customers passed her window. Some women worked the doorways while others worked the parking lot. And illegal activity at this location is nothing new. 2 months ago, police raided a room at the motel and found a meth lab operating inside. According to police documents, it had been operating in the hotel for 6 weeks. In fact, over the past 21 months, police have cited 83 offenses. Half of those were for prostitution and drugs. So how does all this open activity happen right under the hotel owner's nose? We'll confront the owner with our video later. Our hidden cameras caught another show on tape right up the street at the Crown Inn Motel. On several occasions, we had working women tell us the business suites were rooms 108 and 109. So that's where we focused our cameras. And look what we caught on tape. A co-owner of the hotel and her daughter keying the women into the same 2 rooms with different men. We even watched this woman take 14 different guys in the same room over a 4-hour period. And look who keyed them in. Over and over and over. It was the same thing every weekend. In and out, in and out. And look at the offenses. Over the past 21 months, they've had a total of 27 reports filed by police. 10 of those were for prostitution arrests.
That girl really stays busy, doesn't she?
We showed our video to Councilman Ricky Pete. His district includes this area of Lamar Avenue. He says after seeing our video, he'll contact the District Attorney General's office about filing charges against more than just the prostitutes.
I think that we can go a step further with that and look at ensuring that if we've got hotel owners that are participating, supporting, or in business with pimps and prostitutes, that they can be fined and perhaps put out of business if in fact they do not obey the law and if they do not cease and desist when it comes to this kind of illegal activity.
Can you tell what's going on there?
Yeah, this case is pretty blatant. Whereas most cases you're not going to be able to tie management or the owners into the activity like you can on this particular matter, but this one is pretty blatant.
We also showed our undercover video to Lieutenant Rowena Adams, supervisor over MPD's organized crime unit. She says based on what she's seen, there's definitely enough activity to pursue a nuisance law violation.
The activity is definitely taking place. We can present that matter to the AG's office and file a nuisance action on those businesses and perhaps make some arrests in the process and maybe try to terminate the activity.
How many times I have to come outside and tell them, don't walk around here, don't put the car down here, don't do nothing, don't do this. But they just cuss me very bad.
Geeta Patel identified herself as co-owner of the Crown Inn. We asked her about the traffic on her premises. She assured us that she does everything she can to keep prostitutes away, even putting up trespassing and solicitation signs all over the property. You and your husband and daughter are pretty much fighting this thing by yourselves.
Yep, yeah, we do.
I want to show you what we saw. So we showed her the video we caught on tape and asked her if she saw anything wrong with keying different men into the same room, on average 15 minutes apart.
It's wrong because the same people, I don't know. But the guy, different guy.
Same woman, different guy, about 14 different times in a 4-hour period. Same room. You keyed her in several times, your daughter keyed her in several times.
Yeah, we did.
That's for an hour?
I know it's wrong, but they said they don't want to spend all night.
I put them out of here ever since I took over, and I made a lot of people mad, a lot of pimps. And
Heto Bhakta is co-owner of the Deluxe Inn and Suites. He says he bought the hotel about 8 months ago and inherited the headache of prostitution on his property, but now he says he's cleaned it up. That was until we showed him our video. After showing him video of the activity taking place, even while he walked the property, he changed his tune.
I don't know what to so we're doing the best we can do with it. I guess we need some help from the city or something.
And unless somebody steps in, the light will stay on in Memphis's own red light district. Runaways come from every social class, race, and religion all across the Mid-South. Every month, about 250 children and teens run away from home right here in Memphis, an activity that bogs down police and exposes children to physical violence, sexual exploitation, and drugs. It's something this 16-year-old habitual runaway, who we'll call Kelly, knows firsthand.
The people that I was with, had got killed, and I was like, well, that could be me.
Kelly told us she'd only share her experiences with us if we hid her identity. You see, Kelly began running away 2 years ago when she was 14 and stayed away on average 6 months. She says she's run away 3 times now, and it all started, she says, when she was feeling neglected by her mom.
It used to just be me and my mom. Everywhere we went, me and my mom, me and my mom. And then when she brought my cousin in our family, whatever, it seemed like she was trying to pay my cousin more attention. But see, at the time, I realized that my mom was trying to make my cousin fit in. I was getting jealous, and I was like, well, she don't pay no attention to me. Like I was in the shadows. Like she left me in the shadow to be there by myself.
Kelly says she ran away, sleeping anywhere she could and buying meals with the money she took from home. After a few weeks on the streets and broke, she phoned a relative and went home.
I started thinking, like, why am I running? Why? And then I started calling my family.
Kelly says a few months later, she ran away a second time because she didn't want to follow house rules. That, she says, is when she really began to experience life on the streets. It was at that time, she says, she was befriended by a 27-year-old man who promised to take her in if she helped him pay bills. She says she turned to selling drugs.
I had got big into the drug game, or selling drugs, or whatever. I wasn't just selling little stuff. I was selling stuff I can get in trouble with a lot. And I did have like a little job on the side.
That little job on the side, according to her mother, Tamika, was also against the law.
The whole while she was on the streets, I heard that the guy had her out on the streets selling herself, selling drugs, and everything else.
And how old
at
was she
15 years old. And this was my daughter who went from 3.4, 4.0 GPA modeling to this. Found out the guy was 27 years old.
Tamika says she was devastated. She says she tried to prevent something like this by going to the police, even juvenile court.
I'm doing all I can, change the code on my alarm, put her on punishment. I've brought her down here to juvenile to you all, I've sent her to Lakeside, because if you're not talking to me and you're running away, something's wrong.
Kelly denies that she was a prostitute, but plenty of runaways are.
I think the youngest one was 13.
13?
Mm-hmm.
Prostitution?
Yep.
Walking the streets?
Mm-hmm.
Captain John Wilburn supervises the Memphis Police Department's Missing Persons and Runaway Division. He says seeing young female runaways in Memphis turned into street prostitutes by pimps is nothing unusual.
We've had some juvenile females that have been located, and that's what they were engaging in.
Prostitution.
But they wouldn't set up in a hotel room or anything like that. They were just walking the streets doing it, and got caught.
The I-Team hit the streets of Memphis in search of young runaways selling their bodies.
Let's have some fun.
So what's up? What we looking at?
Well, can you spend about $1? Move to the room.
Although the women who approached us wouldn't tell their ages, these definitely appeared very young.
I'll go hang out for the right amount.
We found other cities similar in size to Memphis don't keep runaway stats because they don't consider it a crime. Here in Memphis, it's such a large number. Reports Cap Wilburn says bogs down the system. It takes away precious time, he says, time his 6 sergeants could be focusing on unsolved missing person cases.
It would free us up to help initiate these old cases for the missing persons, but they don't bog us down to the point of where we just can't handle the load.
Running away from home is a clear signal that there's something wrong in a young person's life. But for both the parent and the child, there are places that offer hope.
The root of the problem is communication.
Roderick Mosley is director and program manager for Family Link, a safe house for runaways that offers shelter, food, and counseling. Mosley says SafeLink acts as a mediator between the child and parents, and their main goal ultimately is to get the child to voluntarily return home.
We feel that they're raised best by their families, and we do all that we can to try to help out with the situation of the family problems that they actually have in the home.
He adds that most of the runaways that come to the safe house come because they're not happy with mom and dad's rules.
So what we try to do is explain to them that all through life, and even in this group home here, there are rules that has to be followed.
And it was not wanting to follow her mother's rules that Kelly says sent her into the streets. Rules Kelly now tells us she plans to follow.
Do you plan on running again?
No, I don't want to do it no more. Tired. It makes you look tired.
Eight weeks later, Cynthia Brower is still angry about taking her car to Mr. Pride Car Wash on Elvis Presley. She says while they were cleaning it, she noticed a worker going through her console where she kept a small amount of money. So she confronted him.
And I ran out there right quick and he slammed it down. And when I looked, the dollar bill was gone. And I told him, I said, you stole a dollar out of my car. And he said, no, I didn't. And I said, yes, you did.
She says because she was in a hurry and distracted by her grandchild, she inadvertently left a valuable piece of merchandise under the seat. 5 minutes after leaving the lot, she noticed it was gone and returned to report a theft.
I told them that a diamond necklace had been stolen out of my car. And they said, well, you see the signs. It says not responsible for valuables left in your car.
Cynthia never recovered her necklace. But does a sign like this play a part in why some employees steal? We know it happens. It happened to Cynthia. Others we talked to, it even happened to me on 2 separate occasions. So just how prevalent is theft inside these car washes? Well, what you're about to see will confirm your suspicions. We placed a hidden camera inside this Ford Explorer, then placed money, cigarettes, cigars, and loose change, the usual stuff people leave inside their cars. Then we randomly visited a number of area car washes to see who would steal from us. This is Simonized Car Wash at 6045 Mount Moriah. This employee pulls our car forward just a few feet, but watch him take a wad of $1 bills and slip them in his pocket. A second employee gets in, and the first thing he does, looks inside the console. As he drives the car around, he opens the console again, shuffles through papers, and finds the dollar bills we stashed inside. Before leaving the car, he hits us up for change as well. So we came back to this Simonize a few days later. This time, one of the same 2 men steals $2 from our console.
Where do I go in to wait?
Next, we tested the Simonized Car Wash on 6800 Stage Road. This worker tells our producer to take her money with her because it might get stolen. She takes the paper money. He vacuums, jumps in the car, and then he steals our coins. As he drives the car to the wash, he stares at the money and hits the stash again. We also went to Mr. Pride on Elvis Presley. Now watch this guy at work. He steals our money, cigar, and cigarettes. 4 days later, we return. We happen to get the same employee who did the same thing. This time, he stole a $5 bill and cigarettes. Now, the theft by the employee at the Mr. Pride on Poplar was a bit different. The young man didn't appear to want money, but he did help himself to our cigars and cigarettes. We had seen enough.
He said he ain't stole no money out of a car.
So we took our hidden video and confronted those who stole from us, starting with the Simon Eyes on Mount Moriah. This guy's been on the job 7 years and admits he steals from customers, but says he doesn't know why.
Why do you have to steal out of customers' cars?
No idea, sir. How many times have I told
You have no idea?
not to steal out of a car? How many times?
That's just used to a bad habit I had, and just trying to break it.
So you just a kleptomaniac?
That pretty much, yes, sir.
Because I don't steal.
You don't steal?
No, I don't.
This employee stole from us on 2 separate occasions.
Can't get any clearer than that.
We showed him the video. At first, he denied it, but eventually admitted to taking the change only.
I might have taken change along, but I don't ever remember opening up consoles.
You may have taken the change, but you didn't open the console.
Right.
So
The manager says both men are fired.
you can go home, Greg.
So we try our best to hire employees of the best quality that we can hire. We do background checks on employees.
We showed our undercover video to Mr. Pride Management on Elvis Presley. The worker who stole from us was off.
I mean, I know it's their job to clean up, but isn't this going too far?
Oh, that's going too far for that young man. Yes,
I mean, they're cleaning up and cleaning out.
Management says they offer employees a number of incentives to try and deter theft, but they don't always work.
Can you please turn it off?
This manager at Simon Eyes on Stage Road didn't want our cameras rolling, but decided to view the video and talk to us anyway. He told us customers should read the posted signs.
We have signs out in the outside saying that we're not responsible for loose items and things of that nature.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Are you telling your customers that your employees steal and we're not responsible if it comes up missing? What does that sign mean?
It could possibly come across as a negative. You know, we try to make it. We try to be as positive about the experience as we can. We try to make it as enjoyable as we possibly can.
This employee wasn't at work, but we're told he was later fired. So you see, a cigarette here, $1 there. Some workers have turned cleaning up into a dirty game. Al Deal, Fox 13 News. Last month's tour of Memphis area car washes showed theft 6 out of 8 times. Our undercover camera caught car wash workers looking into our console, taking our cash, change, and even cigarettes. We visited some of the same car washes twice and were ripped off repeatedly, sometimes by the same worker. This worker even advised our producer to get the cash out of her car because it might get stolen. He then proceeds to steal her change. We showed our undercover video to car wash managers who demanded answers from their workers.
Because I don't steal.
You don't steal?
No, I don't.
So you're just a kleptomaniac?
That pretty much, yes, sir.
Despite the denial and excuse, managers say they fired both workers and promised us they'd clean up their act by stopping workers from cleaning us out. But did they make good on that promise? 2 weeks later, we were back on the road to see if things had changed. They had. At car washes where we had previously been victims of theft, no one touched a single dime. Then our tape revealed this moment at the Mr. Pride on Summer and Waring. They were one of the few car washes that didn't steal from us the last time. But this time, we weren't so lucky. We showed the tape to the car wash manager and helped him identify the employee.
This guy right here.
We then showed him the actual theft.
There he is. He reaches, palms it. What does he do with it?
Pocket it.
That's all Bonner needed to see. After viewing the tape, the manager fired his employee. Just another example who was cleaning up and cleaning out.
When it happened, I was sitting in the kitchen looking at the smoke coming up at the wall, out the socket.
Wanda Perry says she thought fire was about to break out inside her home after seeing smoke coming from the outlets. She says it happened because the cable guy was attempting to hook up her cable. And instead of running the line inside the walls of her home like her husband suggested, the installer tried to pull a cable line underneath the house to the other side for the connection. But, she says, he hit some wires and caused a power surge strong enough to knock out her lights and damage just about every appliance and electronic that was plugged into the wall.
You have to open that up down there. Then he pulled that pole through there, see, because you could tell how he got this running, see? It's running from under the house, see? And then that's when he hit something, that's when everything went up in smoke.
Nearly 2 weeks after, and Perry says Time Warner still hadn't replaced what she says she lost. We talked to Time Warner and MLG&W about Perry's problem. Within a couple of days, both agencies were out investigating what happened. Time Warner says they determined that it wasn't a cable issue, but a wiring problem that MLG&W needs to address. MLG&W officials say there are several steps they have to go through before paying Perry's claim, including making sure their equipment is performing up to standards.
We will look at our overall system performance for that day and for the days preceding, and we'll look at the call records to determine if the customer has contacted us previously about any problems that they're addressed.
MLG&W officials say it'll take about 60 days to complete their investigation. After that, they say they hope Perry will be satisfied with the outcome. Al Gio, Fox 13 News, 19. This city worker, Steve Dotson, is the area manager for the Bellevue Sanitation Substation off North Bellevue. In other words, he's second in charge of ensuring everyone there is on the job and working. He's supposed to work at least 40 hours a week. But after receiving a tip that he was goofing off on taxpayers' dollars, we put our hidden cameras to work. On the days we followed him, it was just about the same routine. This day, we watched Dotson arrive at work around 7:15 in the morning. By 9 a.m., he was off to this church at Manassas and Firestone. Dotson later told us he's also a minister, the pastor of New Halliburton Missionary Baptist Church in Olive Branch, Mississippi. He told us he was checking on construction of the church for a friend. 25 minutes later, he was off again. A stop at this bank on Chelsea, and then we followed him back to his house, where his car pulled into the garage. That's right, he clocked in and then went back home. He spent 2 hours at his house before heading back to work. Nearly 3.5 hours of what appeared to be personal business, but his time card showed for that day he worked 8 hours. Another day, the same routine. He left the office around 9:30, went back to the church, again to the bank, and then back to home. He didn't go back to work until 2 o'clock. Then, just an hour later, at 3 o'clock, he was gone for the day. He spent 4.5 hours away from work, but his time card shows he put in his full 8 hours for the city. And it was just about the same routine every time we followed him. Clock in, stop at the church, the bank, and then back home. But Dotson isn't the only employee at this substation with unusual work habits. This city-owned Dodge isn't a taxi cab, but if you followed it like we did, you might think it was. It was being used to pick up employees from their front doors and chauffeur them to work. Day after day, we watched this supervisor, Joyce Flynn, get in the car and drive off. On at least 3 occasions, she provided curbside service in a city vehicle to some employees, even making stops for the passengers. On this day, she picked up this clerk at her doorstep and taxied her back to work. 1 hour later, that same clerk gets in a different city car and heads out. Now, we're told that only supervisors have authorization to drive these cars, but that didn't seem to bother this clerk. We followed her to this residential neighborhood where she parked and went inside a house. 20 minutes later, she emerged and headed back to work. Taking long lunch breaks didn't seem to bother the substation's top administrator, O.M. Camerati. On this day, he arrived at work around 8:15. We watched him leave in a city car around 10, a stop at this home on Crimmins Cove, where workers were removing carpet. By 11, he was at this Super King buffet on Winchester for a lunch break. 2 hours and 15 minutes later, he walked out. A wait in this bank line, a stop at the post office, and he was back at work by 2:25. His workday ended at 4:30. We watched him take a 4.5-hour lunch break, but his timesheet shows he worked the full 8 hours that day. We showed the undercover video to Jerry Collins, Director of Public Works for the city of Memphis. He supervises all employees and says he's not pleased with what he saw on our tape.
It would appear that there may be some instances where employees of the city have used city vehicles for purposes that are not authorized. That would include picking up employees at their home and bringing them to work, and that would include situations where employees that have no business being in a city vehicle are using a city vehicle for personal business.
Collins says his supervisors are supposed to work at least 40 hours a week. In other words, they may work 10 hours one day and 6 the next, so long as they get 40 hours. Still, Collins says he saw some things that definitely need investigating.
We certainly will conduct a thorough investigation of all that we saw here today. If there's any activities that we determine to be inappropriate, then we'll take appropriate disciplinary action. And we thank Channel 13 for bringing this to our attention.
Hey, 3 years ago, 74-year-old Dorothy Applewhite wanted some repairs done to her home. She says she had hopes of having a new bathroom and some kitchen work done. So she took out a loan borrowing $5,000 at a 16% interest rate. But she was hospitalized and eventually underwent heart surgery. Applewhite says she couldn't keep up with the loan payments, went into foreclosure, and almost lost her $60,000 home over a $5,000 loan. She says there were too many forms she didn't understand, and the agent didn't bother explaining.
Just too many papers?
Too many. They wasn't giving you anything. They trying to get you to sell that last paper, you know.
With donations from the community, Applewhite ended up keeping her home, and she says after all she went through, the repairs she wanted were never completed.
What they was supposed to have done was they was going to fix everything around here.
But they didn't?
No.
They had me sign some papers. I'm signing papers I didn't know nothing about.
69-year-old Edgar McDaniel has a 7th grade education. In 2003, he owed $4,800 on his home, and his income was $756 a month from Social Security. According to a lawsuit filed by Memphis Area Legal Services on McDaniel's behalf, McDaniel was contacted by a door-to-door salesman in summer 2003 and contracted to have $16,000 of home improvements. McDaniel told us that when he signed the initial paperwork, there were no numbers on it.
But never told me exactly our price, I guess they said, well, I'll send that later to you, I'll bill you out with it.
They never tell you exactly a price on what it was going to cost to repair all this?
Never did.
The lawsuit also states that after financing, McDaniel will make payments on his $16,000 loan, totaling nearly $80,000 over 15 years. McDaniel showed us what was supposed to be done. Major renovation of a bathroom and repairs in the kitchen. But, he says, they did very little.
And think these people's going to come back and, just going to complete work and painting and stuff like that. And fixing holes in the walls and whatever. And they hadn't did it. They hadn't did nothing like that.
Now, according to the lawsuit, the contractor for the job was paid $22,000, even though less than $7,500 in work was done. McDaniel told us he just didn't know what he was signing.
Actually, I'm not what you're speaking of. I'm not just well educated, like for reading all the paperwork or anything of that nature, because I didn't go that far in school. But You know, they took advantage. They definitely did.
Each year, more than 4,500 people in Memphis alone lose their homes to foreclosure. Memphis ranks among the top in the nation. Experts say these types of loans are a big reason why.
We've seen, a number of people who got into loans that they couldn't repay and ended up losing their home.
Whit Brewer is Chief Litigation Director at Memphis Area Legal Services. He says right now he's representing 10 victims of what he calls predatory lending in federal court.
Predatory lenders is that they don't care very much about a person's ability to repay the loan, what their income is or whatever, but what they do care a lot about is whether they've got a lot of equity in the house. To get a $5,000 roof, a person ends up having to make a new loan for $50,000 or $60,000, and there's usually enormous fees and charges associated with the making of that loan.
Fees and charges so high, Brewer says, it can make the loan impossible to pay back. Brewer says predatory lenders key on certain people.
One of the things that they count on is that so often they're dealing with elderly people. A lot of times they're dealing with kind of low, moderate income homeowners. And the truth of the matter is that the overwhelming majority of the victims of predatory lending that we see in Memphis are African American or people of color.
Brewer says predatory lending is a sophisticated scheme and that you can't always blame the victim.
Those are really hard documents to understand. They're hard even for well-educated people, for attorneys even to understand, and you are rushed through the process. They have the yellow stickers, sign here, sign here, sign here, and are not very subtle even in their pressure to hurry up and sign. And a lot of times these are older people, are people that have fairly limited sophistication.
So how does this happen to our senior citizens? We turn to State Senator Mark Norris for some answers.
Our laws are out of date.
Morris is on a committee that tried to enact legislation in 2003 to stop this practice. But the federal government, he says, preempted the legislation.
And under that federal preemption doctrine, they said in this case that the changes we hope to make here in the state of Tennessee impacted the national banking system and would be blocked.
Morris said they did manage to pass lesser amendments that took effect in 2004 that require mortgage brokers or loan originators to at least be licensed and registered with a lender. This gives the state some ability in regulating them by knowing who these people are, so they may issue fines to them. Meanwhile, McDaniel, who was less than $5,000 from paying off his home before taking out the home improvement loan, says he just didn't understand.
I didn't know what's what. It's just about through paying for it and just didn't know. Just really didn't know.
The whole dining room.
84-year-old Olivia Hayes has lived in this home on Nedra in North Memphis for the past 50 years. According to a lawsuit filed on her behalf, her daughter Janice was approached by an agent for Memphis Financial Services, or MFS, outside this Kroger in Frazier. She was asked if she knew anyone who needed kitchen repairs. She referred them to her mother, so a representative came to Olivia's house and convinced her to sign an agreement for home improvements that would cost about $19,000. But according to her attorneys, by the end of closing, the amount she actually borrowed had more than doubled to $40,000. She says that figure slipped by her because agents with MFS were rushing her to sign a stack of papers without explaining anything.
They had a stack of papers, and we were sitting just like we sitting here. I would sign, and then she would sign.
According to this lawsuit filed in 2004, MFS agents included daughter Janice as a borrower and consolidated Janice's debts into the loan despite previous objections by the Hayes. The suit says doing that increased the loan amount. The suit also alleges MFS and the lender, Novastar Mortgage, charged unnecessary or inflated fees, and in the end, Olivia only received $5,000 of the $40,000 loan she's now responsible for. And to top it off, claims the lawsuit, the improvements to her home were shoddy and incomplete.
I showed them what I want done.
The lawsuit claims her payments suddenly ballooned. She began receiving letters threatening foreclosure from Novastar Mortgage. She says she's never even been late on a payment and knew something was fishy.
taking people's property. They ain't only doing me like that, they're doing quite a few other people in this vicinity like that. I don't know about whether it's the same company, though. But that's what they're doing.
Hayes says she's seen it before.
Because I had a neighbor back there. I don't know what she was doing or how she was doing. She thought, you know, she had a lawyer. And her, when she knowed anything, she said they did her, I don't know what company it was. They did her, and the next thing you know, her stuff was sitting out on the street. I was right back there.
The lawsuit claims Hayes' loan features are predatory. Olivia's attorney defines predatory lending as loans that carry excessive interest rates and upfront fees, exceed a borrower's ability to pay back that loan, and force debt consolidation to increase the loan amount. A practice that has grown over the past 10 years into a billion-dollar industry. Memphis Financial Services was the company that served as the broker on the loan. According to the lawsuit, it's been reincorporated under the name Worldwide Mortgage. The remodeling company contracted to do the repair work was Home Tech. The lawsuit says all of those companies are owned and operated by the same people and based at this office on Mariah Woods. The I-Team has repeatedly tried to get someone from the companies to tell us their side of the story, but they, along with their attorney, have refused to comment. The company that made the loan, Novastar Mortgage, is headquartered out of Kansas City, Missouri. A spokesperson for that company also refused an on-camera interview, but did issue this statement. It reads, "Unfortunately, as with any pending litigation, we're limited in what we can say. However, note that an unaffiliated independent company brokered these loans to Novastar, and Novastar had virtually no contact with these borrowers before the loans closed." Mike Enos, Media Relations. But the lawsuit filed by Olivia Hayes isn't the only legal action pending against either Novastar Mortgage or the companies known as MFS or Worldwide Mortgage. Our check of records in U.S. District Court found 7 pending lawsuits against Worldwide Mortgage, and 4 of which also name Novastar Mortgage, accusing these companies of predatory lending. An example? This lawsuit filed by Memphian Bobby J. Carr claimed that what started as an application for a $5,000 loan for kitchen repairs turned into an unwanted $51,000 loan. And that not only did the homeowner end up stuck with the payments she couldn't afford, she never received enough cash to even fix her kitchen. Another lawsuit, similar allegations. This suit, filed on behalf of Charlene Spinks, claims that she also only wanted a small loan for kitchen remodeling. Instead, it claims she was deceived into signing papers for a $40,000 loan. And because of a combination of unwanted debt consolidation and excessively high fees, only actually got $2,000 in cash. The repairs were never done, and the suit says the house is now unlivable. So while Olivia Hayes waits for her day in court, she's still making the payments on her loan. She says she has faith she'll be able to keep her home because she doesn't want to face the same fate as her neighbor.
Because every time I look around, I think about that child back there. Because that's hard.
Think about the lady who lost her house?
Yeah, who they set her stuff in the street. That's rough. You have to be a good one to get over that.
Ask you this. When you said they put it back into foreclosure, did they...
Ruth Gibson spends her days helping people avoid suffering the same fate she did about 10 years ago. She bought a second house and used her own home as collateral. She says the loan and her notes wound up being more than she expected. To top it off, she says she lost her job shortly afterwards, and then both her homes to foreclosure. That experience, she says, allows her to better help her clients.
Believe me, it makes a difference when you know what. And sometimes I kind of contribute some of that to the success rate that I have with many other clients, is that that comes across to them. So frequently they will tell me things that they may not would tell another counselor. For one thing, I know what questions to ask. I know the things that people don't want to tell, that people would rather not say.
Gibson says she does see a lot of predatory loans with exorbitant charges and fees. And some of her clients, she says, don't even have copies of the necessary paperwork associated with their loans.
So I have people coming here, they don't have a good faith estimate, they haven't heard of this disclosure statement or the other, but if you look at the lender's files, they are there. Little old people and senior citizens don't lose things. They put up every piece of paper you give them, and when they don't have one, they weren't given one. As simple as that.
Gibson says she spends long hours doing everything she can to help people keep their homes. She knows what it's like to lose it, she says, a feeling that never goes away.
When somebody tells you they're going to take your house from you, you are distressed.
Predatory lending doesn't just affect those victims who take out these types of loans. No, it goes further than that. Eventually, these types of practices affect the entire community.
A vibrant community becomes blighted.
Beanie Self is a community development specialist with the University of Memphis. She studies neighborhoods in Southeast Memphis and recommends how to revitalize the areas. Memphis ranks among the top in the nation for foreclosures. Last year, there were 4,500 foreclosures in Memphis alone. And although there's no precise data on how many were due to predatory lending, Self says predatory lending is doing its part to destroy our neighborhoods. Foreclosures, she says, are turned into rental properties.
What happens to that neighborhood is there's a lot of decline. Since they don't own the house, they don't really care about what the house, looks like. It increases crime in the neighborhood. If criminals go in, they see these neighborhoods, they see people don't really care about them, they say, well, they're easy targets. The school system suffers. All of the infrastructure that is, in the community.
Self says it doesn't help that Tennessee has the fastest foreclosure rate in the country. She says you can virtually be foreclosed on in 3 weeks, and the homeowner doesn't have to receive written notice. It only has to be published in a newsletter. One of her biggest concerns, she says, is the little or no regulation of mortgage brokers in Tennessee. That, she adds, has brokers flocking to Memphis.
There are over 15,000 registered mortgage brokers just in the city of Memphis alone. If you look at throughout the nation, Tennessee is being targeted because of that very reason. The other states that surround us have laws in place that keep that type of activity out.
If you don't understand what they're telling you, then you most definitely need to ask questions.
Al Pickett is a mortgage banker for Community Mortgage Corporation in Cordova. He says mortgage brokers provide a service by shopping for the best loan that fits the customer's needs. He says there are certain things you should look for to know if a loan is right for you.
The first thing you most definitely want to be comfortable with is your payment. That's what you have to pay every month. So once we decide what payment range you're comfortable with, that's when we decide how much house you'll qualify for, and then we'll start looking at the different lenders that you can go through to get the best loan and best rates.
Pickett says you should also ask plenty of questions, especially if you don't understand something. Don't let them rush you through closing. It's your loan, and you can read every piece of paper before signing. Always get a copy of anything you sign. Take your good faith estimate to closing. If the numbers change, you'll have your good faith estimate to compare them to. And you have a legal right to have in writing the total cost of the loan, the annual percentage rate, the monthly payments, and how long you have to pay it back. Pickett says the good faith estimate should have everything to let you know whether or not the loan's for you.
It's going to have your fees for the lender. It's going to have fees for the title company. It's going to have your estimated taxes and insurance prepaids. It's going to have the appraisal fee, whether or not you pay it up front or pay it at closing, or it's going to also have credit report fees. Everything. It's going to have everything you need to know to tell if you're being overcharged for your loan.
Advice that would have been helpful to some of the people we've met in the past 3 nights who say they've been hurt by predatory lending. People like Edgar McDaniel.
I didn't know what's what. It's just about through paying for it and just didn't know. Just really didn't know.